Hi, and welcome to the Digital Signage Today podcast. I'm Judy Mottl, editor of Digital Signage Today. Our guest is Chuck Lewis, Executive VP of Business Development and Sales at the Palmer Digital Group. So, Chuck joined PDG when the company formed in 2018 in a collaborative vision with owner John Palmer. And it was all about addressing the growing interest in digital kiosks across many verticals. So they initially focused on innovations in the QSR and retail markets with PDG's consumer-facing digital menu boards, kiosks, and enclosure solutions. So welcome, Chuck. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you again, Judy.
You too. So, I read a little bit up on you, and your background is in retail, AV, display tech. What kind of drove the move into the digital signage realm?
Well, I started in illuminated signs back in 1992 as an engineer. And we're talking about, drive-through static menu boards, monument signs, illuminated, non-illuminated. I'm sure you understand where I'm going with that. Back in the early 2000s is when the migration of digital started happening with one of the companies I was working for. And at that time, I was running the engineering department. And I started getting interested in trying to design enclosures that would support digital displays, exhausting heat, brightness, and starting to work on that. And it just kind of migrated naturally into the digital space. Fortunately for me, that is the direction that the industry actually started to go, as everyone could see, especially in the QSR space where we're using drive-through digital menu boards, indoor menu boards. So I kind of took the right turn when it comes to that.
So, we didn't talk about your background before, but the fact that you're an engineer just shows to me how amazing an engineer degree can go, because I have a daughter who's an engineer, but she's over in civil engineering. And I had no idea that, the engineering field played into so many technology things. So, and to go back, when PDG formed, it was 7 years ago. It doesn't seem like a long time ago, but with technology, 7 years is a long time because so much happens. So if you look back to like when you kind of got into PDG and today, what are some of the big stark differences or, the big curves that took place?
Well, as it relates to the digital displays, really, in my opinion, and I think I'm right in saying that the display companies really did a good job in engineering the displays to be used outside. I'll give you an example. One of the examples is when I was at one of the sign companies and I developed what I think was the first 47-inch pre-cell unit for drive-through. And back then, I didn't know that 450 nits wasn't bright enough. I didn't know that wearing polarized sunglasses, you can't see the display. And I was pulling so much air through this enclosure. It was 350 CFM is what I designed. It was loud. I think that if I name names, Samsung came out with their OH display. That really made a big difference, because what that did is that engineers, again, at the time I was an engineer, that allowed us to do less work, because once upon a time we had to add air conditioning units into the enclosure, heat exchangers, or heavy-duty exhaust fans. But with the invention of that outdoor rated display, you didn't need any of that anymore. So the display needed no environmental help. You could literally hang it on a wall outside and walk away. So with that, you're able to redesign the enclosures, make them cheaper, less expensive, so that it's more affordable to the end user. And I believe that's what really started the industry in looking into the drive-through digital menu boards, because of the affordability of those units now that the displays are ready for outside.
Yeah, it's funny. If you go back, and I can go way back, when they came out with the big TV displays way back, you couldn't watch it from the sides because it hadn't been, innovated enough. You pretty much had to be in front of it. And now you can be almost behind it and see those screens. So it's amazing what the display guys have done. So why did PDG focus on QSR and retail? And I was thinking about this, and I was wondering if it's because the technology was a good fit for those industries, or those industries were like welcoming to new technology, like willing to try it out, willing to be on the frontier.
I think it's the latter. So what had happened is when I met John Palmer, I'd personally been in digital since '07. So Palmer Digital Group was a new division that I started with John Palmer when we came here. Our parent company is Industrial Enclosure Corporation, and they've been in this building in Aurora, Illinois for over 50 years. And I was looking for that right manufacturing partner to be able to manufacture the digital designs that I came up with along with one of my design engineers. And Palmer Digital Group became a good fit. Springboard ahead about your question about retail and QSR, it was more of an organic transition. It was something, it wasn't a direction I created. So when we started PDG in August of 2018, we immediately had our drive-through digital menu board design, indoor kiosk design, and outdoor kiosk design. And how I set up PDG is we are primarily a B2B company. So we help and support and become manufacturing partners with about 15 different CMS companies. And due to, professionalism, I won't name them, we're under NDAs, but what that did is that allowed the CMS companies to become a whole store solution and to make money on our hardware, which really makes us happy because we're helping other companies to make more money. But what had happened again organically is that we started getting more orders for drive-through digital menu boards than the kiosks. And maybe it's because I was promoting it more on social media through you guys, Networld Media, through trade publications. And that particular product continues to be the biggest seller we have. 75% of what we sell every month are drive-through digital menu boards. In fact, on any given month, we ship 300 menu boards a month. And by extension of our partners, and again, without them, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. By extension of those QSR partners, we are in over 40 different major QSR brands.
Wow.
So with that organic transition, I started to focus on advertising more of our outdoor kiosks and indoor kiosks because it almost appeared as though the digital menu boards have started to take a life of their own. Right. And they didn't need any more marketing support. So I left that alone and I started focusing on the other products.
Because now to me, kiosks are booming. It's not like they're new, but I just think that everybody's catching up with the fact that it's such a great customer experience at this point that people expect it as a consumer. So, looking back, way back, if you had to pick one of the greatest digital signage, kiosk, drive-through menu innovation pieces, what do you think's been the biggest thing? And I know you talked about the display, but is there anything else that really has propelled it?
Well, if you're asking as relates to what we've designed and invented, I think our drive-through digital menu board design stands out among the rest. And I have to pat myself on the back because the drive-through digital menu board was one of the last products I personally designed. And based on the innovation of Samsung and LG on their outdoor displays, I had quickly figured out, and this was about 7 years ago, right when I started at PDG, I figured out that those displays didn't need an enclosure, so to speak. You know how you see some of the other enclosure, they completely wrap the displays in metal. And I started thinking to myself, and through conversations with the engineers in Korea from Samsung, I decided to get away from that enclosure and I developed a mount. So our drive-through digital menu board is an enclosure, but it's more of a mount because it allows the Samsung and LG displays to behave the way they were designed to behave. Proper intake of air, proper exhaust of air. It isn't a full enclosure. The cost of ownership is much less because unfortunately when cars hit a drive-through digital menu board, If they're an enclosure, chances are you have to replace the entire enclosure. It's very costly. With ours, you only have to replace the display because there's no metal around the display. It's very, very unique. Um, and one of the things I found out in the last couple of years is that there are a couple of companies out there now that have copied our design. So it's not, bolts to bolts, but the concept of a mount is what they're using. So that's telling me that we actually did something really good. But in addition to the less cost of ownership, it's faster to install, and it's less time to manufacture and less money to manufacture because it's less labor and less metal.
All right. So to me, it sounds like it's almost perfection, but where is going to be where's the future innovation of that
Of the
digital menu?
drive-through menu board?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you really want to get out there, I think I think the technology eventually is going to surpass any type of menu boards in a drive-through. In fact, I just had a conversation with one of my peers a couple of days ago about this, where I think the technology is going where you drive into a QSR parking lot and your phone pings and automatically becomes the menu board. I think that's where it's going. I've had a lot of conversations with some of the major QSRs and they agree with me. But when and if that's going to happen, I just don't know.
Right. I mean, I can see it because everyone's got a phone in their hand, right?
Right.
And there's no line then at the queue or someone, taking up 20 minutes or, not knowing what to order. But, um, that would be amazing. I think that's a long way away, though, right?
I believe. Yeah. I hope so, because if that goes that way, then we're not selling menu boards anymore.
So I was thinking when you guys are, and I know you're B2B, but when when a QSR who is not using a drive-through digital menu board or any kind of kiosk, what are some of the common questions they ask, and then also what are some of the common misconceptions that a potential client may have?
Well, a lot of the questions really, number one, obviously, is cost. And I have to say, publicly that, PDG's pricing is one of the best in the market. We also have an installation department, so we install everything we make. But when it comes to, let's say, QSRs, for example, and even retail settings, the big question is installation, because the cost of installation, because when it relates to outdoor applications, you need a concrete foundation, which costs money, and you need to run conduit for the power to these units, and you also need to run conduit for data lines. I'll give you an example, is that I just did a quote for installing 6 different golf links up in Milwaukee. So it's different, and I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. This is completely new. The reason for the outdoor kiosks out on the greens is for analyzing swings and things like that. But one of the big questions is we have some of the runs that are 1,000 foot away from the building where we have to run data lines and power. So the big question is, how do we do that? So together with the customer and our senior project managers, we're able to figure that out.
So if I'm looking to put in a kiosk or a digital menu board, really location is my big first decision, because
Right.
you don't want to put it in and then say, oh no, I want it over there, right?
Right. Well, that relates to on a smaller level than this golf course, but when it comes to QSR, how far away is your menu board going to be from the curb?
Right.
Because we also manufacture 3 different types of speaker mic boxes. We have a speaker mic box, and I think we were one of the first to invent this. Speaker mic box that gets bolted to the left or right side of our menu system,
Okay.
or underneath, or standalone.
Right.
And all of those matter depending on where that menu board is going to be installed. So, for example, if you go to a QSR and you want to order a hamburger and the menu board's 6 foot away from the curb, we could use the undermount speaker mic box of a side mount. But if it's further back, 10, 16 feet, which we see, those side mount or under mount speaker mic boxes are not going to work. You need a standalone closer to the customer. And those are the type of things we help QSR specifically make those decisions.
Right. I mean, those are all engineering decisions, right?
Well, it all has to be figured out. We have
Right.
a rock star senior project manager that's been around the block, and he's got all of this information written down, drawings done, and really at the end of the day, we help, especially new QSRs, help them do proper placement. Bollards, right? If you don't know, you know what a bollard is. If a car is, so it's those yellow concrete posts that you see in the drive-through.
Okay.
If it's going to be close to the curb, you need a bollard because you don't want a car hitting the menu board. It'll hit the bollard.
Right.
These are all the small little things that matter, and we help the client figure that out.
So if we talk about misconceptions, I mean, we know that cost is the number one thing, but do customers realize that maybe there is a lot more to it than maybe just bringing in this piece of technology and planting it? I mean, do they often understand everything that goes on behind the scenes?
If they're a new QSR or franchisee owner, the answer is no. A lot of these guys that have owned or have a lot of stores that they franchise, they get it and they've been doing it. But no, that's the way I look at it. That's PDG's job when it comes to installing, is that we're going to train our customer and our partners the proper procedures and what needs to be done. So I feel as though it's our responsibility to hold their hand through this entire thing, explain it very clearly and why we're doing things.
So now, if we're going to look forward, there are challenges today in the market, and then 5-10 years out, those challenges are going to be different. What do you see looking ahead? Are there new issues? Maybe the whole idea of the whole data communication, field, or even security. Are any of those popping up on the horizon?
Well, if you're talking about technology, I see eventually Wi-Fi running outdoor kiosks. Already it's happening with indoor and drive-through digital menu boards. Right now it's not very effective because it's very spotty. Moving forward, and I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, is the LCD panels, right? The liquid crystal displays that you're seeing now. They're great. I think sooner or later LEDs are going to take that spot. Now, right now, I'll give you an example again, is that a couple of us were at the DSC event last week in San Diego. A lot of LED people out there. And the LED manufacturers have gotten the LED pitch very close. And they're outdoor rated. And they're beautiful. So in other words, they look good 6 foot away if you're going to use it for a drive-through digital menu board. But the biggest problem is cost. So if I have a 55 drive-through digital menu board, if I wanted to do that size with LEDs right now, it'd be double the cost.
But like any kind of technology, like TVs, for example, that cost ends up dropping over time, right?
I hope so. I think that's where this is headed.
Wow.
And we're already preparing ourselves for that. We're already
Great.
coming up with designs and ideas and chassis and supports to support LED panels for drive-through digital menu boards and outdoor kiosks.
So that when they arrive, you're there.
Right.
Well,
that's the one thing I say about PDG. We're always ahead of the curve. We're always looking what's going to happen tomorrow.
So it's been great chatting, Chuck. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure.
To our listeners and viewers, please check out Digital Signage Today, the podcast page, to catch up on all our great podcasts, and the Networld Media Group YouTube page, where we also have our podcast as well as many others across different verticals. Right. Thanks again, Chuck.
I look forward to seeing you guys in December in Tampa at the next show.
The automated show. Yeah, right. We'll be there. Thanks again.